What's up, everybody? Welcome to Kinda Funny Games Daily for Thursday, July 7th, 2022. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside Forbes 30 Under 30, a.k.a. the second best baby blues in San Francisco, a.k.a. the pure one at Tim Geddes.
The pure one, bringing it back. I like that. I also like being back on Games Daily, Greg. Normally I'm on the Monday episodes, but it was the 4th of July, so I missed out. So this is my first one of the week. I haven't been caught up on any of the video game news I need to know.
Well, you know, there's news every day you need to know about, and that's what's jumping in there. So I wanted to make sure, you know, there's something hot and fresh for you. Yeah, the pure one. I was reminiscing, if you didn't know. You know what I mean? Today's the anniversary of the first thing I ever filmed for youtube.com/GameOverGreggy. You and Nick working for pizza to film me talk to Colin. And that, like, and when I then stayed home from IT, we edit like 900 episodes of the show and whatever. But like, I have it on the calendar over here. How many? I guess that was 2012. So it's been a decade.
Wow.
It's been a decade of you and me making YouTube content together outside of
IG in a decade.
We're independent, obviously, but it's been a decade of it. So yeah, I saw that. I was reminiscing. I was looking at the old photos. I was like, oh man, it seems so long ago. So recently, all at the same time. But yeah, outrageous. Dude, that's where we are.
I saw a Mexican Coke a couple days ago. Yep. And it was like one of those hits of deja vu. I had one of those That's So Raven moments, you know, where it's like I just went into my mind's eye and saw all the previous times and what led to this.
Yeah, I think that it might have put me on the track along with it, because yeah, Rahul was having a Mexican Coke last night on the Kinda Funny podcast. You can get right now, youtube.com/KindaFunny podcast services around the globe. But yeah, insane. You know, crazy.
Love
and
to
how
see
far
it,
we've come.
Years.
Now we get to break the news. We get to talk about the news every day. Of course, there's breaking news. I didn't put it in the Roper report, but I did get one of those random ass press releases I get that talks about the most popular games state by state.
Good.
Barrett, you said you had it ready if you want to toss it up. Right now, no surprising, God of War, most popular game in California. Now, this comes from journoresearch.org. I don't think I've ever subscribed to their press release mailer, but I get them all the time. They come with these little infographics. New research reveals that God of War is the most searched for video game across 4 different states, including California. Despite being released 4 years ago, it is clearly still very popular with gamers. Gaming experts at Minesweeper analyzed Google Trends search data for the top 25 most popular video games according to How Long to Beat from 2022 so far. The most searched for game in each state was revealed. Some games made multiple appearances on the top spot for 4 different states. So as you look across there, you can see it. I thought there'd be more Elden Ring, Tim, if I'm being honest, as we look across there. But no, you're seeing it's on. And again, this is like, you know, How Long to Beat is what they're going off of. Minesweeper. When you go to this Minesweeper page, it's just playing Minesweeper online. I emailed the lady back. I'm like, I don't understand how you got my email address, and I don't understand why Minesweeper is doing this, but I thank you for the infographics. They're pretty. But yeah, you look across Grand Theft Auto 5, 15 states. That's how many people are
2 states for Ordle.
For Ordle?
Mm-hmm. Look at the bottom right.
Well, yeah.
How are you making it up? Oh, you're blowing it up here. I'm like, this is so small, I can't even read some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Portal.
Yeah, Portal.
They said Ordle.
But I think it's interesting. Like, Greg, you said no Elden Ring, and then yet TMNT.
No, I said I thought there'd be more Elden Ring, to be clear.
Well, is there any Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Only 2 states, but then TMNT Shredder's Revenge, 4 states. That's so
it's
weird.
New. It's popping off, dude. Turtle power.
Weird. Huh.
Yeah, it's people are searching for it, of course. Yeah. So there
Tomb Raider, though, popping off.
You can learn a lot about states by looking at what games they search for, of course, and how, you know, what they're playing with and what they're most interested in. So yeah, you got Elden Ring.
Which Final Fantasy is that?
2.
Final Fantasy 2. Okay.
What state? I don't even see it.
Up there.
South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah.
That is the most bizarre thing on this entire list. That, like, I can't.
It is
everything else. I'm like,
bizarre thing on this entire list, Tim. You are right.
Yeah. Because
what is
like,
surprising outside of that, Barrett? I mean, for me, you know, I talk a lot of shit about Kansas, and so the fact that a bag of broken glass was able to beat out rocks this time, pretty impressive. Of course, Kansas one step away from one of them understanding how to make a ball and then, of course, make a hoop. And then they have some kind of thing to go. They have ball and hoop over there. But right now, it was rocks last time we saw one of these infographics. Now it's a bag of broken glass in Kansas. And just, God bless them, they're trying over there. You know, you gotta stumble blindly in the dark. And then eventually someone in Kansas will get around just the fucked up gene pool they have going on. You know what I mean? Just a real the hills have eyes gene pool going on over there. And then they'll get out of that and they'll be able to put it together. You know, one of them, but like everybody else from Kansas who kind of gets a break, they'll just leave and never come back. Of course, they don't want to play with the rock or the broken bag of glass that they all pass around. But I digress. Let's talk about other gaming news, such as the fact that it's going to be E3 2023 versus Summer Game Fest 2023. Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion details, and Inscription is coming to PlayStation. We're going to talk about all that and more because this is Kinda Funny Games Daily. Each and every weekday on a variety of platforms, we run you through the nerdy video game news you need to know about. If you like that, be part of the show. Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Over on Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, you can write in your questions, your comments, your concerns about the video game news of the day. You can get the show ad-free. You can get the exclusive post show we do. And of course, you can get a bevy of other benefits like the ability to watch us record PS I Love You XOXO live this afternoon. Of course, that's one of the many things you get on Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Not limited to, but also including Barrett and I's new Q&A that's up. Of course, the Next Gen podcast, and oh so much more. However, if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. There are a number of free ways to support Kinda Funny. Number one, you could be using the Epic creator code Kinda Funny on the Epic Game Store, or when you're buying your Fortnite V-Bucks, or doing something in Rocket League on your PlayStation, Switch, Xbox, etc. No matter where you are, if they use the Epic creator codes, use the one Kinda Funny and help us out. Why not? It's free. Of course, beyond that, you could be watching us record this show live on twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames. Over on twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames, you are watching live, so you have a special job, just like DJ Kento, the Frog Knight, CJ Rock 32. That's, of course, to keep us honest by going to kindafunny.com/you're-wrong and telling us what we screw up as we screw it up so we can set the record straight for everybody watching later on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, roosterteeth.com, and listening on podcast services around the globe each and every weekday, where, of course, they have to listen to the ads. They can't write in. They don't get the post show. They can't watch the other shows get recorded live, but they're still having a good time. But maybe they have a better time on patreon.com/KindaFunny. Who is to say? Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Housekeeping for you. As I already said, Rahul Kohli is back on the Kinda Funny podcast, and Andy hurt his feelings. Come watch the Nitro Rifle squirm out of this one. YouTube.com/KindaFunny. Podcast services around the globe. And then, hey, if you want to be on Patreon where you can support us, you could hear Rahul's story of two guys coming into his hotel room and then him getting really mad at the hotel manager. It's fucked up. Beyond that, shout out to Prime Gaming for sponsoring our streams. To celebrate Prime Day, you can start freeloading over 30 games with Prime Gaming for Prime Day 2022, and then you'll also be able to claim additional games on Prime Day, July 12th and 13th, which will include AAA titles like Mass Effect Legendary Edition, Grid Legends, Need for Speed Heat, and Star Wars Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, and Star Wars Republic Commando. So check out the link in the description to start freeloading games right now. Remember, if you have Prime Gaming, you have a free subscription here on Twitch. Please give it to twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames. Maybe you're listening or watching this later. You want to watch the streams we're going to do. You get those on youtube.com. You can get those on twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames as we do them. But more importantly, if you have Amazon Prime, you have Prime Gaming, you get all these free games we're talking about for Prime Day, but also you get a free 30-day subscription to give away on Twitch, and it would really help us out if you did it to us. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Fargo Brady, Gordon McGuire, and Al Tribesman, the Predator. Today we're brought to you by Chime and Shopify, but I'll tell you about that later. Oh, no, Tim's got something else to say right now.
Before the Roper Report, I have an important thing to tell you, Greg. In the year 2009, but back when I was in college, me and my friends were hanging out at one of my friends' dorms, and we were like, oh, let's put on a movie. And we're like, oh, let's put on a scary movie. So we put on The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
Right. And we're watching it, and it took about maybe 7 minutes before we realized something was wrong. But
Sure.
even then, from minute like 4 to 7, we're like, this doesn't seem right. And it was revealed pretty quickly that we were actually watching The Hills Have Thighs.
Nice.
The porn parody.
I'm sure that was by
The
mistake.
Hills Have
I'm
Eyes.
sure that was just a happy little mistake that happened.
Totally was, because
Sure.
we were all shocked as hell when there were some things being seen that we're like, this seems a little graphic for a horror movie, but at the same time, it took long enough where we're like, horror movies get weird sometimes. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like there's like a lot of sex scenes. So yeah, it took us a bit before we were like, huh.
But then you watched the whole thing, right?
Well, then it just turned us skipping around trying to find all the most fucked up shit. Let me tell you guys, there's a lot of fucked up shit in The Hills Have Thighs. Okay, do I recommend watching it? No. Do I even know if it's possible to watch it now? I don't know.
That's the biggest thing. Is I think really, you know, with the advent of the internet, there was that moment where things were on VHS and we just dropped them and walked away. And now you have this unlimited sea of porn out there, right? It's like when me and my friends went to, well, it became an FYE. Before then, I think it might have Suncoast Video, and one of them bought the Erotic Witch Project Part 3. And like, is the Erotic Witch Project up anywhere? I don't know. Part 3 of it? I don't know. I just remember there being a whole subplot where a gorilla escaped the zoo. They made a big deal about this, Tim. A gorilla escaped the zoo. And you're like, what does that have to do with anything? And they did it just so at the end, when everybody was possessed by the witch, the gorilla could come into frame and be the one to pick up the camera and then record the sex scene. That's the entire reason. Like, you can say, the Erotic Witch Project Part 3 can be criticized for a lot of things, production value, acting, yada, yada, yada. That is a stroke of genius in writing, where this is when they used to try in porn, right? Now it's all so mundane. Oh, I am stuck in the washer. Oh, I am stuck in the dryer. Oh, I'm just horny. I don't need a reason. There used to be stories. Bring back Greg, the stories is what I'm saying.
There are stories, step bro. Just, you got to get on the train, man.
Step brother, what happened? I forget where we'll get back to that or whatever. No, I didn't do the Rope Report jingle yet, right? You stopped me?
I stopped
okay, cool.
You.
So anyways, let's begin the show with what is and forever will be the Roper Report. Time for some news. 6 items on the Roper Report.
Baker's dozen.
Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, they will keep saying it until you believe it. E3 is coming back in 2023, but this time it's coming back with Reed Pop. We go over to GameSpot, where Darryn writes, E3 will officially make its return in the second week of June 2023, with the running of the convention being handled by Reed Pop. The convention organizer, which also runs PAX, Star Wars Celebration, and several other shows, will work in partnership with the Electronic Software Association to host publishers, developers, journalists, and consumers at E3's usual location, the Los Angeles Convention Center. For E3 2023, Reed Pop says that it has listened to feedback from the gaming community, will honor the E3 elements that have always worked, and will reshape the parts that haven't been well received. Following reports of a, quote, toxic environment rife with internal politics, witch hunts, and infighting by Variety in 2019, it was rumored that Reed Pop made an offer to take over E3, but it never happened then. The last couple of years have seen E3's presence on the gaming calendar shrink as an exodus of big brands, rival shows such as Summer Game Fest, and the coronavirus pandemic hit the event hard. E3 2020 was canceled due to the pandemic, while E3 2021 returned as a digital-only event, and E3 2022 was completely canceled. A streamlined and secure media registration for E3 2023 will begin in late 2022, while a list of confirmed exhibitors and event schedules will be shared in the months to come. Tim, before you even get to what the obvious question would be of who has got something else to say about this, what's your initial reaction to this?
I think that Reed Pop partnering with them is probably the best possible way E3 can turn into a thriving convention. I think it'll be a drastically different E3 than anything we've seen before, but I think that's actually a step in the right direction for what E3 was trying to be and feeling at the last couple of years that it existed in physical form.
Sure.
I feel like what E3 means to us, what it actually is, what it actually was, and what it actually has to be are all very, very different things. I don't think we'll ever get back to how things used to be from 2010 to 2016, 17 even, right? Like I feel like with back when Nintendo once Nintendo started doing directs, and then Sony just straight up pulled out, and then Microsoft did this kind of like half in, half out. We're in here, but we're actually there type stuff. Like what E3 means changed. And I think that once they opened it up to the public fully and all of that, it always had to turn into more of a consumer show at that point. And I think Reed Pop are the right people to handle that. Like Star Wars Celebration's awesome. PAX obviously has been kind of the king of gaming conventions when it comes to community. So it's cool stuff there.
And so that is the big thing I think to take away, right? As soon as I saw this isn't any chance the death of E3 as you knew it, but it's definitely for sure them doubling down and really committing to consumers, wouldn't you say?
I mean, yeah, I feel like the death of E3 as we knew it, like that's long gone. Like E3 is coming, it's coming back. It's like it's not in the way that you like. Anything that you actually care about E3, that is gone. Like, because what do people care about E3? Like the funniest thing about E3 always for the people watching at home, people think of E3 as like, oh, the press conference is this, the that. No, press conferences just happen to happen around E3. It's all strategic and planned, but like E3 is just the 3 days of mainly games media being able to play games on the show floor or behind closed doors, and then put out preview articles on the IGNs or KindaFunny or GameSpots or whatever, right? So for years, what E3 actually was already not the thing that people kind of like give it credit for, I guess. Because like people give it credit for all those like announcements and stuff. And I think that 2 years ago, or was it last year when you hosted? I guess it was last year.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Jesus.
Well, because you're counting the one we just got through as one.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. So 2 years ago, then when you did that was E3's first real step at having their own show, period. And even then, they didn't really have their own announcements. They just kind of were trying to be a home for everyone else's kind of showcases, and way too many showcases, which led to it being not that great of a show in any which way. So it wasn't serving any of the audiences that are looking for anything from what they remember of E3. Hence all the problems we're having.
What I would like to bring in is an article from gamesindustry.biz, which of course is a site owned by ReadPop. Over there's an opinion piece up from Christopher Dring, who's writing in and saying, how do you solve a problem like E3? Of course, Christopher works at gamesindustry.biz. He's listed here as head of games B2B. He's talking about how he's been brought on to work with this, and how when they first approached him to see if he'd want to work on E3, he was a little cold to it. But I like what he has here, right, where he's talking about what you're talking about, right? And actually, I'll go back a little bit. He's talking about doing all these Zoom calls, right? Getting excited about it and what's going on. We were throwing around ideas about how we could get those consumer and business elements to work. We talked about what we could offer those companies not interested in big booths. We dreamed up ways we could make the event more of a celebration and less of a battleground. They had thought all about it. Here's where I think it's what you're talking about. We discussed ways to embrace everything that takes place during E3 week, ... whether they're part of the show floor or not. And that includes things like the PC Gamer Show and Devolver Digital's Car Park, and yes, Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest. Because to those watching at home, all of that is E3. To most people, the event isn't 2 halls in downtown LA, but it's the showcases, the reveals, and the video games. E3 is more than an expo, it's an idea, and one that's bigger than ReadPop and the ESA. There's no use fighting against that. That desire to unite the industry, irrespective of whether they're part of the show or not, extends around the world too. E3 is already a global event, and we want to take that further. Some of the ideas are too ambitious to pull off in 1 year, but we can certainly give it a try. Of course, it's possible that people have already made up their minds about E3. Perhaps all of this is a little too late. And when my bosses come back from meeting all the big game companies, parentheses, with a presentation that will inevitably get leaked, perhaps we'll hear how everyone was indifferent, and it's just not what the industry is looking for. But I hope not. I hope they'll sign up and come back so that together we can make E3 2023 a week to remember. How could I say no to that? I think that's a really good encapsulation of what we're talking about, right? Of like, and what you're talking about is like E3's not. E3 gets credit for all the announcements, but it's really the press conferences before that people are using to piggyback. And then after Nintendo would end, that's when the show floor would actually open. It wasn't even about what was happening at E3.
Yeah. Two things that I love here. One is Not the Lysander in the chat says E3 isn't a place, it's a people, which is very funny. And then the other thing is like, I love what you just read about like, yeah, no, it's everything, including Summer Game Fest. Like, I love that Jeff Keighley and E3, the ESA are both just like, yeah, like all that stuff too. It's part, just we'll throw it on a calendar. It's all part of the same thing. Like, it is very funny that there's so many different events that everyone's just trying to take credit for and be like, yeah, we'll put our logo on it, and then it's part of it, right? That's how it works. And then everyone else is like, I don't know that we let you put our logo on it. But they're right though. It's like, to the end user, us reacting to it, the people in the chat watching along with us or alone or whatever it is, like, who gives a shit what the branding is of whether it's Summer Game Fest or E3? Like, it's who's doing what, who's announcing what, and is it exciting or is it not? And I think the problem is when we have multiple people competing to win, which is how this all works, there's no getting around that, there's going to be losers. And unfortunately, right, I think the losers are going to be us having to watch 15 hours of stuff with a couple like pop moments, as opposed to what used to be that dialed in week, which, lest we forget, also had way too much content that was filled with way too many duds. Like, we can't just act like E3 used to be this 10 out of 10 savior thing every year. It was like, we were lucky if we got 2 fantastic press conferences a year.
100%. And so, yeah, like, you know, it's a sea, an ocean a world of riches, right? Of all these things getting announced at the same time and doing all these different things, which is very nice and very interesting forever and will be. But Tim, let's move on to part number 2.
Let's do it.
Let's move on to story number 2, because sure, E3 wants to come out. They want to say they're back with ReedPop. Summer Game Fest is not about to go quietly into that night. Instead, they tweeted after all this stuff happened, get ready. Summer Game Fest returns in June of 2023 for the 4th year with a lineup of digital and in-person events to celebrate the future of video games. Sign up at summergamefest.com for more details. Bam. Right there. This is war, Tim. This is war.
And again, we're the losers. Like the fact is,
I'm no loser.
The war needs to end in order for all this to get aligned, because until then, people are kind of fighting over resources. There are already limited resources when it comes to resources, in this case being game announcements, being people showing up and committing to one side or another. And already Summer Game Fest, like last year, didn't have Nintendo, right? Didn't have PlayStation, right?
Last year?
Yeah, the one we just went
last year
to.
they didn't.
Yeah. So it's like we're still missing those, like the big partnerships, right? The ones that this year.
Yeah.
They had
PlayStation.
Okay, they had PlayStation. They did not have a Nintendo though.
I thought now we're into this 2-year business you were talking about. Right?
Yeah.
All right, let's stop doing that. It's no 2-year business. We're talking about this year or last year.
This year, This year, regardless, we're at a point. We're not at a point where Nintendo, Xbox, and Sony are all doing their biggest game announcements at one thing. And I don't know that we'll ever get there again because of how independently successful all three of them have found different avenues for announcements and things. But I can guarantee it's not going to happen if E3 and Summer Game Fest are both going on at the same time and people are like competing for who gets what where.
That's going to be the most fascinating part of how does this net out and how do you get involved with this and who do you pick? You know what I mean? Like, do you go to the ESA or do you go to Jeff Keighley? And right now, Tim, you have a big game. You're at one of these corporations. You're at one of these companies. Where are you going? You going Jeff or you going E3?
I am Jeff fan number one. I believe in Summer Game Fest. I think Summer Game Fest needs to be the answer, and it is the answer. They get it. They understand what the needs are of all the different people we've been talking about earlier, whether it's the media, whether it's the consumers, whether it's the XYZ. Like Summer Game Fest gets it. Jeff gets it. The one thing he doesn't get is all of the resources and all the announcements and the ability to just full on do Summer Game Fest the way he wants it to be, the industry wants it to be. And as long as E3 is a thing, that's just causing more problems. And I don't think E3 coming back and the way that they're trying to do it and all that is going to be the direct reason that Summer Game Fest doesn't get Nintendo. But I do think it dilutes the water enough that it just causes a problem that Summer Game Fest doesn't become the one thing. Like we're still going to be talking about E3 5 years from now, whether or not E3 even happens for the next 5 years. Like I don't know.
There's so many interesting things about this in different parallels and ripples and universes you could see it going, right? Where if ReedPop's coming in and they're making E3 a more consumer sided event, does Summer Game Fest then just become the more press sided event where they're still doing their presentation and their showcase, but then how we went down to LA and played a bunch of stuff, would we do that while the E3 show floor is open to whoever wants to come and buy a ticket? And then at that point, if you're publisher, how are you splitting up your games and where are you going? Because again, this is something that Christopher Dring brings up in his gamesindustry.biz article, right? That one of the hurdles E3 had was the fact that people go to E3 and they expect that they're going to get to sit there and play everything that was on the PlayStation press. I'm talking about older ones, obviously. PlayStation presser, Nintendo presser, Xbox presser. When in reality, even for us as press at those E3s, it was, have you booked an appointment? Well, that's a behind closed doors things. It's hands off. It's 30 people in a room, like how when we saw Cyberpunk a million times.
I mean, even then, like it is like cool. The PlayStation press conference has 10 game announcements. You get to actually play 2 of them. You get hands off watching a video with like 2 more minutes of footage than we saw in the other thing.
They take a different path through their vertical
2 more
slides.
of them, and then 6 of them aren't even there at all. You know?
And so, that's the question then of like, if in one of the many realities of where this is going to go, if E3 becomes the consumer event, and I think if that's the case, becomes dramatically smaller. I doubt it's 2 halls in the convention center anymore. I think you shrink it to 1. If you're doing that, then is Jeff doing Summer Game Fest across the street a week before, whatever it is, where you can go play all these games? Are you how much can the ESA charge right now for booth space? What can they do with that to make it work? Do Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo see a value in doing either of these, or is it just, hey, we'll come out and do the Last of Us Part 1 announcement at the end of the Summer Game Fest thing? Because again, is E3 now going to do an E3 press conference, or is E3 going to do the same thing kind of Jeff did before with Summer Game Fest, which was like, hey, this is all happening at this. You can catch it on their Twitch channel, but we're doing it on our Twitch channel too, and our partners at IGN are doing it on their thing. Who is IGN going to partner with if Summer Game Fest and E3 are running head to head? How are you going to cover it all? God, it's going to be fascinating. I can't wait for June.
It really is, and I personally, like, I would wish, because I'm right there with you, like, I don't want E3 to go away in any form, but like, if it's going to exist, I think, especially with ReedPop, community focused, making it more of just a consumer con is the right move to do, and I think that would benefit so many more parts of the industry, because like, especially like thinking about like indie developers, there's so much booth space there's so much ability to like get games in gamers' hands, and I think that if E3 as a consumer event was part of Summer Game Fest, that would be the ultimate ideal way to move forward.
Imagine,
but
if Jeff somehow did that, like Shane McMahon comes in and buys WCW.
But that's what would then all of a sudden things are working together in a way that can be bigger than what we've had before, as opposed to just Jeff doing his version of E3. Right. Yeah. One thing I do think that I want to mention, because I know we've talked about it in a couple places, but in context of this conversation, Summer Game Fest being the press conference that it was, like that we saw a couple of weeks ago, and even with last year's as well, like that's something that E3 never had. E3 never had one press conference that it's like they were putting on. Yeah. And I think that there's such value with that. In addition to that, what we went down to do with Playdays, when me, Greg, and Bless went down to LA and we got to play a bunch of games, that was essentially what E3 used to be, but it was just the best version of it I have ever experienced. Definitely some room for improvements here and there, and I feel like there are some things that they can make better next time, but guess what? I think that they're going to do that. But Greg, you've been doing this a long time, like a decade plus. Was that not the best scenario we've had to play that many games from different publishers and developers?
Like, what Playdays this time around was what Judges Week used to be. And if you remember, what it used to be is in May, I'd usually knock off for a week and I'd go down to LA, and Jeff would have organized in conjunction with E3, around E3 and the publishers, a bunch of different publishers who would then show us their games that we would then be the judges for E3 awards. And the idea usually was there that for Judges Week, you would see a bunch of AA video games, the video games that would be we didn't see, Last of Us or some kind of crazy exclusive or that was going to get announced on the Xbox or PlayStation press conference. You didn't see those games. You saw the games that were going to get announced there, maybe that were smaller, but they would be overshadowed by a big announcement, or stuff that, on the you wouldn't necessarily prioritize your staff going to play. So somebody could play it on staff, write the previews, and then also have a voice for it of like, hey, this is actually good, or we're talking about family games or racing or whatever. These things you normally wouldn't do, you do that. That's what SGF was the best version of, because even Judges Week, what it used to be was you'd go to LA, stay in a hotel, and then it would be get on a bus, drive 45 minutes in LA traffic, 30 minutes in LA traffic, 20 minutes, whatever. Get to this thing, get off, play some games, do some presentations, eat some food, get back on the bus, go to a different drive, and you do this day in, day out. So to have it all under one roof, have it all right there, have it all, beautifully laid out, and especially in a time where we hadn't been together in so long. No, that was great. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. June, right around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Not literally, but it's pretty close when they're already going at it. But like, do you think, ReedPop, right? And I'm talking a little bit out of turn here. KindaFunny.com/you're wrong. Stick with me. Obviously, PAX East and PAX West kick in and going, and no problem. They stopped PAX South, right? And did they stop PAX Unplugged, or is PAX Unplugged still going? That's the one I'm really out of tune on. Let me know in there. But my question becomes, do you think, is there a future, you think, where E3 gets big enough where they fold out one of the PAXs? Or do you think it moves to this like trifecta where it is PAX East to start the year, E3, and then PAX Prime? Do you push PAX Prime farther out? West, because West is, usually at the end of summer.
I don't think that they unless they end up rebranding it as a PAX, I don't think they let this affect the scheduling of PAXs. I think they treat it like a different convention entirely.
Okay, fair enough. Unplugged is still a thing, says Reson or Resonator. Unplugged is still a thing. It's in Philly. There you go. Okay, good enough. Good enough. If you think we're doing a good enough job, ladies and gentlemen, why don't you go to patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Over on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, you can write in and be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do, and you can watch us record PS I Love You XOXO live this afternoon. Of course, though, you're not on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames right now, so here's a word from our sponsor. I love that sound. It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business. So, upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and I know the Kinda Funny store at kindafunny.com/store uses Shopify to sell all our merch, including all those cool Portillo shirts you guys have been so great about supporting with. I love how Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed from down the street to around the globe. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps. Go to shopify.com/KFGames, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/KFGames right now. Shopify.com/KFGames. No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got bills due. Good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit. That's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. But Chime is more than just about getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and optional savings account. So what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. Get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. Get started at chime.com/KFGames. That's chime.com/KFGames. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on your payer. One of the things I meant to bring up during that whole thing is that, and everybody knows I am a fucking moron, period. Full stop.
Yes,
everybody knows that about me. So I'm not throwing rocks from my glass house at all. Remember, of course, everybody remembers Xbox Game Pass when that first started happening, right?
The greatest value in gaming.
Of course. But when it first started, I had to keep paying Andrea, what was it, $1 or $5 a pop every time I said Xbox Games Pass. It drives me up the fucking wall that people write in their articles, Summer Games Fest. It's Summer Game Fest. SummerGameFest.com, not
But
games.
why is there only one game that the fest is being?
Because I don't think they're not talking about game as in, oh look, I have my copy of the Quarry right here. They're talking about game. Like it's a festival of game and gaming. It's everywhere.
The game is a people, not a place, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes. So I feel for Jeff Healy on that, because I'm sure it's got to be nails on a chalkboard to read a GameSpot article, or was it even the Games Industry Biz article? Yeah, it was Games where they like games. Both of them called the Games Fest. Like, I
don't know, man. I bet you he wanted Games Fest, but he couldn't get the URL, so he was like, I guess I'll drop the S. He probably doesn't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
He doesn't know. You don't think Jeff knows?
Summer Gaming, GameSpot has their GameSpot of gaming thing. Everyone has something. You know what I mean?
So you're saying you don't think he could get the URL summergamesfest.com? Tim, I'd like you to go to summergamesfest.com right now, because whoever did this is fucking amazing. I don't know if this is a joke from another podcast, but this is definitely something that Greg Miller would have done. Greg Miller would have done this in a fucking heartbeat. I'll tell you right now. If you're an audio listener, it is a hot dog, or a giant hot dog in one of those stand-up taco shells with some cheese puffs next to it on a blue plate, and it says, "Welcome back to the party, my friend," or "Welcome back to the party, friend," and they misspelled too.
I love it. And it's literally just a picture you can zoom in on. This is did you do this, Greg? Is this a long con joke?
I don't know who out there got the URL summergamesfest.com, but God bless you. God bless America.
Fuck, that's funny.
Number 3 on the Roper Report, Tim. This one goes out to you. We have Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion details.
Hit me with
Kat Bailey over at IGN. Kat has a big old article up there that's required reading if you care. But here are the bullet points I'm pulling from it, all right? Square Enix is overhauling the graphics, the interface, and somewhat controversially, the voice cast. Quote, various improvements have been made to nearly all other scenes and battles, to a point where it could be said that the work we are doing is akin to creating a remake, end quote. Producer Mariko Sato says. However, as the core elements, such as the story, are grounded in the original work, we call it a remaster, end quote. In addition to, and I'm jumping around this entire article, by the way. In addition to overhauled graphics, Crisis Core will be fully voiced while also featuring a newly arranged soundtrack. The gameplay is also getting an update, with Zack's attack combos now being linkable and limit breaks being accessible at any time, not just when they pop up in the in-game slot machine, known as the Digital Mind Wave System, or DMW. The DMW, for its part, will remain largely the same, meaning that elements such as leveling will remain random as ever. In the meantime, all of the original assets are being replaced with the updated versions utilizing Unreal Engine 4. The intention being to be, quote, visually aligned and up to the standards of Final Fantasy VII Remake, according to Sato. To that end, the PC version will target an impressive 120 frames per second, while the PS5 and Xbox Series X/S versions will be at 60 frames per second. Sato didn't elaborate on the Switch version, but did say that there would be differences in the resolution and FPS. Fans shouldn't expect new story content in the update, which explains why Square Enix is referring to it as a remaster, despite the substantial improvements being made across the board. Quote, with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, it was a new starting point for a Final Fantasy VII, and so we decided to expand the story. But with the Crisis Core Reunion, it's a remaster, and it's still positioned as a story that expands on the original Final Fantasy VII story, and so we didn't want to stray too far from that. Sato adds that there are no plans to include any new elements in the story, meaning new side quests and other storylines are most likely out the window. But that doesn't necessarily preclude, say, a post-credit teaser that sets the stage for Rebirth. Tim, you are the one here who flipped out for Crisis Core. What does all the stuff I just read mean to you, and do you care?
I mean, even just Barrett bringing up that footage and seeing the opening scene of the trailer, like, I can't believe this is real. I still am kind of in shock that Crisis Core is coming back and that they're treating it with this much reverence. I am so excited about this. Crisis Core is one of my favorite games because of its story, because of its characters. The gameplay was always fun enough. It's definitely kind of the earliest version of some of the more action-based 3D Final Fantasy that we're used to nowadays, like with Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Like, a lot of that stems back from Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core and the PSP. But I'm really interested in a lot of the specific words and how careful they are about what they're saying and how they're talking about it as a remake versus remaster, and having different producers here say different things that are all lining up with this is still the same story from the original that matches up with the original Final Fantasy 7 story. I think that means one of two things. One, Square doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and why the fuck would they not just make changes and make this line up with Remake and have it be a nice story for people like Greg and Blessing and Andy, who never played the originals all the way through but have played Remake, give them more storyline to actually go off. Or this is a master stroke play by Square, which I'm hoping, and based on what they're saying here, I believe with, is that they are purposefully making this the original story so that you guys get familiar with that story and are then able to have twists on it. So it's more of a Spider-Man No Way Home type situation where you guys are familiar with the previous Spider-Man.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So that familiarity allows them to kind of get weird and do crazy stuff in No Way Home. With this, if you guys know the backstory of Crisis Core, what's important about Crisis Core is it's a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, the original. But a lot of the events of the game are very similar and are flashbacks kind of from the first game. So story-wise, lore-wise, character-wise, origin stories of key characters like Sephiroth, who you don't know but played Remake, and all of a sudden at the end he's kind of
I know he's a bad guy, kind of, and he's in Smash, and you all liked that a lot.
I think that having Crisis Core be an experience that you guys play through in the with the context of Remake, all of a sudden it's going to really enhance and strengthen your knowledge of key important events and characters from the Final Fantasy VII universe from the original timeline without having to play the whole original game. So as complicated as this all sounds, what it boils down to is I think that if they pull this off, it is going to be actually the simplest way to get new people like you back on board and fully understanding the original timeline story so that we can have a totally new story with the remake timeline and have it all line up and make as much sense as games named this ridiculously can make sense.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. That makes sense. Keeping it straight, because how many people know about Zach other than you and Ryan Clements? That's all I know.
I love Zach, man. And so that's the thing too, is like talking about the overhauled graphics and stuff. I'm really happy with the majority of what we're seeing and how in line it is with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm not the biggest fan of Zach's redesign. It's the dumb little things, but like, when you like the originals one way and they look kind of different, you're like, the voice acting. I was a big fan of his original voice. I don't like that they're changing it, but I think I'm going to live. I was so used to the Final Fantasy VII core cast voice acting from Crisis or from Advent Children and things like that. And when they changed it for the game, I was like, and I ended up loving those voices. So I'm okay with that. Newly arranged soundtrack. That's a hit or miss. I'll have to wait and see. I love the soundtrack of Crisis Core. Recently, I've been listening to it nonstop after the hype of this trailer. So if they can bring it up to date a little bit, that'd be great. But that was one of the first games I ever heard that had fully orchestrated songs, not for the whole soundtrack, but like for a couple key moments that were so well done. So if we can get more of that in this, that'd be really cool. And then otherwise, the gameplay changes they're making with the DMW system, like that all sounds like just taking an old PSP game and modernizing it, which is what this is going to need to maintain the fun levels for people like you that have played Remake, but not the others.
My question for you would be, yesterday on this very show, KindaFunny Games Daily, Janet Garcia and Jared Petty had a conversation with the one and only Barrett Courtney on the ones and twos about when they thought this game was coming out. And Barrett, of course, is what I like to call a student of the game. And so, of course, when they made a big deal about, this is...
I learned from the best, Greg.
Thank you, Barrett. When they said, it's coming out this winter, a lot of you motherfuckers like, I'll be playing this in December. And me and Barrett are like, you'll be playing it in March unless it gets delayed. Where do you think this is coming out?
I don't fucking know, man. It's Square.
Yeah.
And that could mean a bunch of things. Square's been putting out a shit ton of games. And it seems like they kind of got this one on lock. It is not the most complicated thing. And at the end of the day, this game's not that long. It's not a full-fledged Final Fantasy game. It is a PSP game. A lot of the assets they've already kind of had from Remake, and they've been working on Remake in some way, shape, or form for so long now, with porting it, with Intergrade, with the PS5 versions, PC, all that stuff. So they're very familiar with the assets. I say all this as somebody that doesn't make games, so I don't know how much that relates to this at all. But the fact that they're announcing this and they have their winner plan, just as much as any video game that puts a date on it, I don't believe it till I'm playing it. But I believe that their winner is right. I just don't know what that winner means. I don't expect to be playing this year, though.
Okay, fair enough. Number 4, I got some games you might be playing this year, Tim. Today, PlayStation did one of their PlayStation blogs. We're like, hey, for no reason, out of the blue, we're gonna talk about 7 indies right now. Get hyped, and we got hyped. So those announcements go like this. Number 1, Sea of Stars is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in 2023. Of course, that's from Sabotage, the folks behind The Messenger. Shim, that game we played at Summer Game Fest, where you're a little frog jumping in the shadows, is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in 2023. Cult of the Lamb was already announced for PlayStation, already announced for August 11th, but they showed more for it there. Signalist coming to PlayStation 4 October 27th. The Tomorrow Children Phoenix Edition is launching September 6th for PlayStation. It's back from the dead. Curse to Golf is coming to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 August 18th. Yes, we'll get to that new dates. That applies to the other stuff as well. But then the big one from the day, Tim, was in fact that Inscription is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5.
Ooh.
No date given, but Andy Cortez was flipping out on Twitter like he does. So there you go. Nothing really to say. Just a heads up, that's happening.
It's cool.
Number 5 for you. Ubisoft is trying to save Anno 2070 from Ubisoft. This is Andy Chalk at PC Gamer with the headline of the day. Ubisoft announced last week that it's pulling the plug for online support for a number of its older games, including multiple Assassin's Creed, Driver San Francisco, Far Cry 3, and several others. But Ubisoft Mainz, the studio behind the city sim strategy game Anno 2070, which is also on a list of games losing online support, isn't letting it go without a fight. Quote, after an initial investigation, we have decided to dedicate some of our development resources to working on upgrading Anno 2070's aged online services infrastructure to a new system so that these features can continue to be used past the mentioned date, the studio said in an update posted shortly after Ubisoft's shutdown announcement. Quote, however, we cannot yet guarantee that we'll be able to successfully upgrade / replace the old services as we'd like to, end quote. So if you care about Anno, they're trying to save it for you. And it's just funny that Ubisoft's like, we're done with this. And Ubisoft's like, well, fuck you, are you? We'll find out about that.
And
then Tim,
over there.
to close out your one and only Roper Report for this beautiful Thursday, July 7th, 2022. Number 6, Xbox is talking a little bit about what's happening at Gamescom. Ollie Welsh at Polygon writes, Microsoft has confirmed that Xbox will be present at Gamescom 2022 in Germany in August. Instead, it will be focusing on providing updates on previously announced games. In a statement to press, Microsoft said, quote, we're excited to confirm that Xbox will be back on the show floor at Gamescom 2022 in Cologne, Germany. Fans in Europe and around the world can expect updates on some announced games coming to Xbox in the next 12 months, end quote. The focus on the next 12 months mirrors the message from June's Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, which concentrated on gameplay footage and concrete information on games coming in 2022 and mostly early 2023, rather than splashy reveals of far-off titles. Xbox exclusives presented at that showcase that might make a return at Gamescom include Starfield, Redfall, the new Forza Motorsport, and Minecraft Legends. Given the traditional focus of the German show on strategy games, the Civilization-style Aura History Untold is a good bet. As well as presenting its wares on the show floor at Gamescom, Xbox is likely to be part of the Jeff Keighley hosted Opening Night live stream. It's possible that it also will host some streams of its own. So, Tim, trying to get in front of what got him in trouble at E3. And in trouble, I'm using loosely, but when a bunch of people are like, nah, why didn't they say ahead of time it was only going to focus on 12 months?
Yeah, people are going to say things no matter what. I think
people are going to say things no matter what.
No matter, I mean, literally, yeah. It's like the grass is always greener. There's always something to complain about. I think that this, going back to the original story we talked about today of the E3 Summer Game Fest, like what is each supposed to be? How could it all work together? I think what Xbox has going here is a great example of it across different conventions in terms of their own plan. Announcing the next 12 months of games at Summer Game Fest or their showcase, that time frame, June. Allows them to then spend the next 12 months showing those games off to actual players, getting the games in their hands at events like Gamescom or PAX, etc., throughout the rest of the year. Super smart. It just allows actual marketing for games that are actually in development and far enough along to be played, as opposed to having to come up with vertical slices of games that might not be coming out for another year plus or whatever it is. So I just think that this kind of feeds a lot of different needs for what conventions actually are and why Xbox would ever even want to be at one to begin with.
For sure. But there you go. Everybody be looking for that and be excited. Are you excited for the Opening Night Live? They usually have some good stuff there. Not like megatons, but no.
I feel like they don't usually have good stuff. And I feel like we're getting to a point where the Keighley stuff, I think, are even themselves getting pulled a little thin, because now we have Summer Game Fest, we have Opening Night Live, and we have Game Awards. So what used to kind of be like the two tent poles is now, I think, Opening Night Live and Summer Game Fest are a little too close to each other. At least my gut tells me they are this year, knowing how much the pandemic has affected game development, game announcements, all of that stuff. Like, I feel like it's probably going to be not even as good as Summer Game Fest was this year. The press conference itself, but sure. Fingers crossed. I hope I'm wrong. And again, I understand the importance of doing these things to build the recognition and build up what it is, because like Gamescom is huge, and Gamescom has always been the black sheep of conventions when it comes to the way that we talk about them. It was always like, oh yeah, there's E3, oh yeah, and then Gamescom's the thing too, right?
Gamescom's always had that chip on its shoulder, right? Where it's we're bigger than E3. Like this is we should be the main thing.
Numbers of like how many people are there, but like again, like the couple of times that I worked Gamescom, like, you know, there's never anything big. What was the weird game where you play as like the mouse that you can customize, or the rat that you can customize, and you're like Biomutant? I feel like that was the biggest thing to come out of Gamescom, and like look at what that was, you know, like as in terms of like announcements and like really like huge things. Like Gamescom is not that show.
And just as a third party looking at it, I imagine that, you know, Jeff got involved with it and like did step it up. Jeff made it go from there's no press conferences, or it's just maybe there's an Xbox or maybe there's a PlayStation, depending on the year. And like they used to go back and forth with like Paris Games Week and things like that, but and Tokyo Game Show and all that. But like I can imagine that Jeff was like, okay, cool, the E3 is a thing. I'm going to work over here and get this thing going with Gamescom, trying to turn it into more of a big summer event. And then now he has Summer Game Fest. So now it's like, oh man. And the idea of like when Summer Game Fest first happened, and it was like, cool, it starts with the E3 week with not being called E3 and ends with like the season finale being Opening Night Live. Like, I think that is cool framing. I think that we've gotten really far from that though. And that's not how they're presenting this anymore. So we'll see. I think that there can be success with a Gamescom keynote.
Okay. We'll find out soon enough, ladies and gentlemen. But Gamescom is so far away. Tim, if I wanted something more immediate, say what came to them mom and grub shops. Where would I go?
The official list of upcoming software across each and every platform is listed by the KindaFunny Games Daily Show host each and every weekday. Ooh,
Yeah.
Skibbity-doo up.
Out today. Epico is out now in the Nintendo eShop. Grid Legends is launching a photo mode. Vampire Survivors final boss is here. Major patch 0.8.0 brings Big Baddie and Final Relic and more. It's prime time to call the Diamonds M's Agatha Barker this week in GTA Online as Casino Work is dealing triple rewards with special GTA money bonuses on select missions. Which Strandings, a Strand game, comes to PC today. Gwent Rogue Mage is a single player and standalone expansion out now. Kamikaze Veggies is making its debut on Steam today. Meanwhile, Over Rogue is out today. Ruins Magus is out today. Matchpoint Tennis Championships is out today. DJ Mac Respect V is out today. Didn't do my homework. I did all my press releases, but then I didn't compare like I usually do to the releases.com over here. Cubite Classics is out today. Nin Online is out today, and that's it. Those are all out online. New dates for you. As I said before, Curse to Golf, August 18th for PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. Blade Assault is September 30th, 2022 for all the PlayStations, all the Xboxes, and Switch.
No, Greg, you got to stop here, okay? It says Curse to Golf tees off on August 18th, okay? Yeah. You got to get the press release.
No, I fucking hate that shit.
Blade Assault doesn't have one. Blade Assault slices its way to stores September 30th.
And that's the shit that I fucking can't stand. And I know I try to cut it out, and sometimes I'm in a hurry. It
makes
gets
its way in.
I'm sorry if it ever does, guys. Koromon is coming out on Switch July 21st. It sets its sights, whatever the fuck. Bright Memory Infinite opens a black hole July 21st on Xbox Series X/S, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch. And then in just a few short weeks, this is GTA Online stuff. In just a few short weeks, a new update is coming to GTA Online on all platforms and will expand upon the criminal careers of executive, biker, gun runner, and nightclub owner, alongside a set of contract missions that presents the opportunity to be sworn in as a special IAA field operative to investigate the budding criminal conspiracy.
Koromon was a game that I remember Blessing checking out at GDC, and he was pretty into it. Definitely a Pokemon-inspired game. So there you go.
Why is it setting its sights? You know what I mean? Just tell me the fucking date.
Get the ball.
I think it's setting its sights specifically to the Switch release date because I think it was already out on something else. So.
See, when it says sights, though, I'm assuming it's going to become some kind of a shooting game, you know? Because I'm using my iron sights on it. Right?
I mean, we also all have eyes, and you can just set your sights with your eyeballs.
We also have thighs.
Do you ever call your sight though? You wake up and you're like, what are you using your sight for today, Barrett?
Yeah. Lulu asked me that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I stand corrected, everybody. I apologize. You know what, Barrett? You win. There's no argument there. Deals of the day for you. Xbox free play days are here, of course. You can save the earth from aliens or race to your heart's content during free play days. Saints Row 4 re-elected, Assetto Corsa Compatizone, and The Crew 2 are available this weekend for Xbox Live Gold and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members to play until Monday morning. Then Nintendo Switch Online members, you can now download and try the full Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle game at no additional cost until July 12th at 11:59 p.m. PT. It's a fun game. Go play it. Don't listen to these people who don't like Rabbids, Gary Whitta, you know?
I know. No. It really hurt, man. It really hurt my soul.
He doesn't want to give him a shot. He doesn't even want to see.
Again, Rabbids, do we love them just as Rabbids? No. But is it worth dealing with to play a really good Mario XCOM game? 100%.
All right, here we go. Now, I asked people watching live to go to kindafunny.com/you're-wrong so we can set the record straight for everybody watching later. Let's see what we got here now, because there's stuff going on here, but it's a lot of talking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's going on?
Blah, blah, blah.
No, we don't. I don't know what this is, and I don't care. No, that's nothing there. And then Boars and Double Zero is giving me a way to contact the person who owns summergamesfest.com. I just saying congratulations. That's all it is. I don't need an interview. I just want to say good job on that. You know, if you're watching, if you're a fan, just redirect it to youtube.com/kindafunnygames. That'd be awesome. If you don't mind. For a day, 2 days, all the days. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, that's another episode of Kinda Funny Games Daily in the bank. But your week isn't over. Of course, Blessing and Timothy will be here tomorrow to bring you all the day's news. If you're watching live right now, guess what? There's a stream happening, and it's going to be Death Stranding. Mike and Kevin are beginning their Death Stranding playthrough today on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. If you aren't watching live, maybe you're driving your car going honk honk on the old expressway. You can catch it later, youtube.com/kindafunnyplays, where we put up all of our stream archives. If you want to go over there and subscribe, like, share, all that, that'd be great for us, because that's a new channel we're trying to build up over there. If you want to come watch me and Tim do the post show, patreon.com/kindafunnygames, that'll be up later. Of course, you could go there, you could sign up, and you could watch us record PS I Love You Today live. You could watch us record the XCast tomorrow. You could record I was going to say watch us record the Gamescast next week, but no, that's embargoed. We got a review, so you won't be able to watch that one. Don't worry about it. But all sorts of cool stuff's there, like me and Barrett doing the Q&A on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. But I digress. If you have no bucks tossed our way and you're not going there, this show's over for you. So let me remind you, this has been Kinda Funny Games Daily. Each and every weekday on a variety of platforms, we run you through the nerdy video game news you know about. If you like that, be part of the show. Patreon.com/kindafunnygames. On Patreon.com/kindafunnygames, of course, you can write in to be part of the show. You can comment on the news. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can have a good old time. You can also get the show ad free. You get all the benefits, yada, yada, yada. No money tossed away. No big deal. Epic creator code KindaFunny. Use your Twitch Prime subscriptions, Amazon Prime. Use that for us on Twitch. Kinda Funny Games. youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, podcast services around the globe, youtube.com/kindafunnyplays. It's all out there for you. It's all there, and every one of those things needs your help. Don't just water one of the flowers. Water all the flowers.
Tinkle. Just a little tinkle here and a little tinkle there. And a lot of tinkle there.
I don't think these guys ever washed flowers. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.